Welcome to the Gold Standard season-ending edition. Mercifully, I am Braden Gall, and of course, you can get to me on the internet at Braden Gall, and I'm joined by both Emma Lingan and Adam Vingan, brought to you, of course, by Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. If you are watching, of course, on YouTube or on the socials, please share that, retweet that. If you are watching on X/Twitter, thumbs up, notifications turned on if you're on Facebook and YouTube. Good morning, Emma. How are you?
I am very relieved that this dog of a season is finally over.
You got the second star last night after a 5-1 win over Dallas. The fans got the first star, everybody. Adam, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. The Predators are peaking at the right time.
Yeah, I saw that tweet. Thank you for your sarcasm this early in the morning.
Got him right where we want him. Yep.
All right. So, Emma, you caught up with Matthew Wood yesterday, and I just wanted to get a sense of sort of like what the last few weeks have been like for him. It's a cool moment. It's a cool experience for a young player to get to debut in the NHL. So we got it's an exclusive, right, Emma? Emma Lingan exclusive with Matthew Wood. No scrum audio here. This is just a one-on-one for a couple of minutes. So we'll play that a little bit later on. We'll talk about a lot of the rookies. And I'm going to try here, folks. This is for Eddie and Josh and Kevin and Jesse and all you awesome folks, Jeff at Lower Broad Hockey and who listen to this show. I'm going to ask Adam and Emma to give me the most positive memory you have of this season. What is the most positive memory that you will take with you about this season a little bit later on? So we'll do that. We'll talk Cup playoffs, because that's a thing that's going to happen without the Predators for the second time in 3 years. So here we are. And so lots of good stuff to do today. Obviously, the offseason strategy, sort of very early in this process, but like right now, if you had to choose your own adventure, I'd love to know sort of what the priorities are strategically for this organization moving forward, whether it's expiring contracts, whether it's Andrew Burnett, changes in the front office, draft, whatever trades. I want to hear from you guys from a big picture strategy standpoint. I know we've touched on that now, but now that the season's over, I want to get there. Of course, Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. I know this is a hockey podcast, but they are putting on our charity draft party, third annual charity draft party that benefits the Our Kids Foundation. You can come hang out and watch the draft with us if you're a Titans fan, if you're just a regular football fan. If you're not a football fan, it's going to be a good hang. Sinkers Beverages, all you can drink on Thursday next week on April 24th. And then, of course, on Saturday night, we've got a Q&A with a lot of 440 folks, including myself, Paul Karski, Nick Suss, Steve Cavendish is going to be there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We got a lot of Titans talk going on after the draft on Saturday, 5-flight bourbon tasting. And, of course, all you can eat Shotgun Willie's Barbecue on both Thursday and Saturday. Those tickets are available now. Not many are left. So you please check out the links in the show notes. On the podcast app and on YouTube. You can get them there. You can reach out to me. I'll get you the links if you need it. So there you go. Okay. Are you buying the good taste in my mouth narrative?
No, moving on.
I understand that it is better to go into a bad offseason, an important offseason, a critical offseason, having watched your goaltender, who's going to be around for checks notes, the entirety of his new contract now after this game, playing really, really well. It is nice to see young players developing and playing well. It's nice to see the puck go in the net. It means absolutely nothing, but a lot of talk after the game. I'm so glad we ended on a high note. Thanks to the fans for sticking around all season.
Wrong. No, I mean, great. They won. That's great, right? I would be far more concerned about the Dallas Stars, but we'll get to that later on.
They are limping into the playoffs.
Literally, as Emma tweeted last night.
I see what you did there.
Jason Robertson news that looms over what happens in that playoff series, but we'll get to that later. No, I just think it's lip service. And I say this lovingly because a lot of those questions were asked by Brooks Bratton, who, of course, works for the team. So he has to put a positive spin on this turd of a season. And as I was in the dressing room last night, listening to the players answer those questions, you could kind of tell they were straining to find.
Adam, they never quit. They never quit, Adam. They never quit.
Congratulations. You won your final game. It was still the second worst season in franchise history by points percentage. Like, great. Like, do you think that Philip Forsberg is going to train in the offseason with a little more pep because they won their final game against the Dallas Stars? No. So, like,
If anything, he would probably train harder in the summer because they lost to the Dallas Stars. Like, if anything, right?
So, to me, it was a nice send off. The fans when it comes to
I don't know why, Emma. I don't know why, and Adam, that's so funny. Kevin says, noted turd polisher Brooks Braden.
we love Brooks Braden.
Brooks is a
We
great
love
dude.
Brooks
Yeah,
Braden. He is a grade A guy. Like, the fans deserve, like, it was fan appreciation last night. The fans deserved to be appreciated after what they had to endure over the course of the season. So save me this, good feelings heading into the offseason when we beat the Stars, who had nothing to play for in the final game of the season. So no, I'm not buying it. So sorry, guys. Emma, anything to add?
No, actually, I think you nailed it. I'm not buying it either. It's this last game of the season means absolutely nothing. Like like you said, I mean, the Stars had nothing to play for. If anything, well, not just if anything, I mean, they actually probably shouldn't have played certain players, and then they did, and now that's why they're literally limping into the playoffs. And so now I just think that, like you said, I mean, it doesn't change anything. The last game of the season does not change anything for this team, and it's still, if anything, you should be a little frustrated because you're like, where the hell was this all year? But again, I think it's less about Nashville doing well and more about Dallas. I'm worried about Dallas.
Well, and that's irrelevant to, I mean, most of our fans, our audience, Predators fans, probably don't care too much about that. Maybe they do. I don't know. Like, does everybody root against as hard as possible against like the Central Division? I don't know. It's once again, though, I think it's once again the toughest division based on points. You got the President's Trophy for the Jets. We'll get to all of this in a little while, but 3 teams over 100 points, 2 wildcard teams. Utah's pretty solid this year, took a step forward. Preds are better than their record, but yeah, I don't know. Kevin, I think Kevin explained it. There we go. I think that's look, Colorado number 1 on ESPN to win the whole thing, and number 2 on, I think, FanDuel to win the whole thing, odds wise. We'll get to this in a little bit later on, but the 2 teams that were the 1 seeds in both conferences are not even close to being the favorite to win the whole thing. So love the NHL playoffs. We'll do that in a little while. What is the first order of it? Give me the order of operations here on the Choose Your Own Adventure offseason of, critical importance that starts today. I know, Emma, you and Gover talk on It's All Your Fault. Go check that out. A lot about sort of the strategy around the timing of other coaches being available or not available to talk with for Trotz to make up his mind about. I have been of the belief that Trotz has probably made up his mind at this point. If that's the case, it means Andrew Burnett's probably coming back. Obviously, this is the first order of business. What is give us the, Emma, your rationale, sort of you and Gover's conversation around timing on this and fans to be patient. Do you believe in that? Is that the right approach here? And then what are some of the other strategies that Barry Trotz needs to deploy first after making a decision on Brunette?
Well, first of all, I am not convinced that Brunette is going anywhere. I don't know how much his job has even been in jeopardy as much as we would like it to be. I don't know. But again, Barry Trotz is a very, he's not going to do anything without a plan in place. And so he's not just going to fire Andrew Brunette and say, we'll figure it out. I think that the only way that Brunette goes anywhere this year is if somebody else gets fired or leaves a job, comes in, meets with Barry Trotz, and absolutely blows him away. And even then, I'm not sure. So just because he doesn't get fired, today, doesn't mean that he's not getting fired at all, but it also doesn't mean that he is. I think that again, we saw this happen again. We can debate how right or professional or fair it was. That's a separate conversation. But we saw a similar thing happen with John Hines when Barry Trotz came in. A lot of people were calling for Hines's job. He didn't get fired. They actually went and did the whole season ending press conference with him. It was
awkward.
And then he was gone. But that was because Andrew Burnett at the time, that was the guy that Barry had his eye on, and he was still coaching in the playoffs with the Devils at the time. So again, the timing of all of that, you can have your opinions on the fairness and the professionalism of it. I certainly have my opinions on it, but regardless, I think that we have precedent from that to show that Barry Trotz is not going to make any decisions without, kind of going through this process.
My question is, if the Predators bring back Andrew Burnett, how do they sell that to their fans? I am curious about how they would attempt to do that, because it's going to be a hard sell. We know where this team finished in the standings. They had 68 points. By the way, I looked this up because I wrote it down at the beginning of the season. Their over-under point total at the start of the season on ESPN Bet was 98 and a half.
98 and a half, yeah.
So they finished 30 points below their projected point total. As I mentioned, the second worst season in franchise history by points percentage. Absolutely the most disappointing season in franchise history relative to preseason expectations. They took steps back in several important categories. For example, last season, they were 12th in the league in expected goals per game, goals for per game, I should say, 12th. This season, they're 20th. Last season, they were 11th in expected goals against per game. This season, they're 26th. And before you say, well, look at the roster they were putting out at the end of the season, sure, that played a part in it. At the Four Nations break, when Roman Josi wasn't injured and Luke Shen was still on the team, at the Four Nations break in mid-February, they were 28th in the league in expected goals against per game. Yeah. So the defensive issues predate all of the injuries on the blue line. We know that they couldn't score, but this wasn't an issue of them having – look, they did have some terrible shooting luck. I'm not going to pretend that didn't happen. But this wasn't an issue of the Predators having the worst shooting percentage and they were generating oodles of high-quality scoring chances. They weren't even doing that. To me, I've said this before, there appears to be something about the process that is broken. And I'm not exactly sure what it is, but when you look at those expected goals for and against numbers, they took a nosedive. And to me, the only way I think that the Predators can, quote unquote, successfully sell this to their fans is Barry Trotz has to take all blame. You mentioned Emma did, John Hines. I remember after the 2022 season, which is, I believe, the year they were swept out of the first round by the Avalanche, David Poile fell on the sword. He said, I gave John Hines a bad hand. This team has not been as good as it was in previous years. Basically said, I screwed up. And that's what Barry Trotz would have to do. Barry Trotz would have to go to the news conference and say, I underestimated the amount of time it was going to take to get these free agents to gel. Maybe they weren't the right fit for what Andrew was trying to do. I made a mistake by thinking that Tommy Novak could be a second-line center in the NHL. I think Barry Trotz would have to absolve Andrew Burnett of all blame. And I don't think you can do that realistically. So I don't know if there is a way, because if Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett have their news conference and Barry Trotz says, I know I'm going to be asked about this, so I'm just going to say it right off the front. Andrew Burnett will be returning as Predators coach next season. He better have a damn good explanation. And I really don't know if there is one that would be satisfying. I was thinking about it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. You can't blame injuries. I know Roman Josi missed a lot of time, but again, the defensive issues predate Roman Yossi's
Oh,
injury.
I think Trotz, the roster moves, and Emma, I think I'll just do this for you. They did have right-handed defensemen on the roster. They moved them all. I just wanted to get that out of the way for you, Emma, because I knew that's something you're going to say at some point during the show. But I mean, that's a place where, again, none of this, like, there's the messaging to the fans, to your point about selling the decision to keep him, and then there's like the reality behind the scenes of what they actually think is productive, successful, good, or bad. Right? Those are two different things necessarily. And so I think I think to your point, it's easy for Barry Trotz to say, look, I made some moves during the season that, I stick with most of them, but there's a few that I could have had back based on some injuries that were going to happen. We ended up leaving our defense and our goaltender out to dry because of some moves I decided to make. The offseason signings didn't go as I planned. The veterans didn't acclimate to the system as much as I can, and that's on me. Like, he can do all of that in terms of selling Brunette. But the reality is still, behind the scenes, you need to evaluate if he's good or not. Like, is he good with this group of players? Is it a good combination? Whatever that means, whether he's a good coach, good players, bad players, they have to have an idea of what they can be next year. So let me ask you guys this. How much does Andrew Brunette's previous accomplishments, namely Florida as an interim coach, not getting the job, but having success, how much of that season is in your mind when you evaluate him as a head coach? Because we had some questions on the subscriber chat about, is he a good coach? Is he a bad coach? He's probably a good coach, but he's not maybe the right coach for this team. That kind of conversation. And I always find myself saying, look, one season of overachievement in Nashville, one season of atrocious underachievement is a split, and next year will be the deciding factor. I can see that as the description. Do you take into account the fact that he did have a very good high-scoring hockey team in Florida, or is that not really relevant to how he performs in Nashville's organization?
That's a good question. Keep in mind that when the Panthers, I believe Joe Quenneville resigned. When Joe Quenneville resigned as Panthers coach, they were 7-0. Like it wasn't like they were 0-7 and Brunette came in and turned everything around. Like, I always hesitate to say things like this, but I'm sure a lot of coaches could have gotten out of those Panthers what Brunette did. If I'm not mistaken, by goals per game, they are the highest scoring team in a season in the salary cap era. I believe they average more than 4 goals per game. Like, that was a really good team.
Seems notable.
Right. That was a really good team. Barkov, that was the final year of Jonathan Huberdeau and Carter Verhaeghe, and, a really good team.
Yeah.
But keep in mind that despite that excellent season, despite being a finalist, I believe, for the Jack Adams Award, the Panthers didn't want to keep him. And I remember there were a lot of people who were like, why would you fire Andrew Brunette for Paul Maurice? Because remember, Paul Maurice walked away from the Winnipeg Jets, and it's worked out swimmingly for the Florida Panthers. I don't think you can ignore that. Like, Brunette helped the Panthers have an outstanding regular season. Why wasn't that good enough for him to stick around? Like that, I do think, and I'm probably guilty of this. I do believe that I have inflated the importance of that season for the Panthers when it comes to Brunette. Like, I do think Brunette is a good hockey coach.
But if you are Barry Trotz and your
Right.
job is to evaluate a human being, isn't everything that human being has done part of the evaluation in
Right.
theory?
You can't. Those wins are on his record, right? But
Emma, where you at on this?
Yeah, let Emma take this one.
I actually agree. I think that the more I do think about it, I've been guilty of that before too. I mean, like, well, look what Brunette did with Florida. And it's like, well, again, it's not like he completely resurrected them out of, obscurity. I think that it was going to be a really good team regardless. I am more focused on what he's done since then, like what he's done in Nashville. And it's hard because I know it's going to sound like recency bias, of course, because this season was so bad. But I mean, even things that he was supposed to be like he was supposed to be the guy on the power play. Like the power play was supposed to be his thing, and they were supposed to really improve on the power play. This team has been on the whole very average on the power play. Like he went to New Jersey, he turned their power play around. And I don't know. I just think that, to Braden's earlier point about, we've had one really, one season of overachieving by a lot.
By the
One
way,
season,
the Predators are 18th on the power play since the start of last season in the league.
so below average then. And then, so
factually, yeah.
yes, but I think that, if you go and think, okay, we have one really bad, underperforming season and one overperforming season. If that averages out to, like, as you're suggesting, Braden, just one average season, I could see Barry Trotz using that as the justification for keeping him. Again, I don't agree with that, but I think that, I could see that happening. What concerns me is the fact that we have seen two such different performances out of this team. The fact that after 2 years, we still don't know who this team is, how close they are, what they are. I mean, that to me is the most concerning sign out of anything. And I mean, whether I agree, Barry Trotz, I'm sure he will take at least part of the blame for that. He kind of alluded to that the last time we talked to him, I think at the trade deadline, when he said, yeah, I gave Andrew Brunette, I've given him a difficult task here. And ever since then, I think it's been like, ugh, all right. Now, and I'm well aware. I know that this is not all on Andrew Brunette. It's never that simple. So, but again, to Adam's point, someone has to fall on the sword. And
this team has missed the playoffs, as you said, Braden, 2 of the past 3 seasons after making it, 8 years in a row?
They have not won a series.
They have not won a playoff
since
series
2017-18.
Yes, they have not won a playoff series in 7
That's
years.
That's everybody's fault. That's everybody's fault.
And the one thing, and like we've talked about this before, maybe this is a little bit off topic, but the whole, like, I've always had a hard time buying when Barry Trotz has explained his reasoning for signing all of the free agents. You guys can correct me if I'm misinterpreting his comments. He talked about, I'm buying time. I'm buying time for the next group. I'm sorry. You don't sign Steven Stamkos if you are buying time. You sign Nick Foligno.
You don't think that was in the conversation, the selling points? Hey, Steven Stamkos, come to Nashville.
Right.
Where you're going to buy some time for us.
I know that Steven Stamkos, he's won his Stanley Cups. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Nashville's a great place to raise kids. I get.
But do you think that if the Predators said, look, Steven, we're signing you because, we need to buy time. We need to buy time for Matthew Wood. We need to buy time for Fedor Svechkov. We need to buy time.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. Like, we need to buy time for those guys. So you signed Steven Stamkos, among others, to win. So this, Barry Trotz, he said a couple of times in interviews with Jerry, he's like, I thought that we would be in the mix clawing for a wild card spot. Are you kidding? Like, you don't sign Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault and Brady Shea to compete for a wild card spot.
I think there's more nuance to this conversation than I would say. I think you can do both. If I'm Barry Trotz, I may not say this to Steven Stamkos, and I may not say it to Adrian Brunette or the fans. I'm not going to message this outwardly, but I have no problem saying, like, I'm going to walk and chew gum here. I'm going to buy time and try to win at the same time. I don't think that you have to. I don't think it's disingenuous. I think your message you're sending to the fans, though, when you sign $100 million worth of players is different than oh, by the way, I'm also buying time here for my young guys. I think he's been very careful for a guy who talks a lot and just sort of like yaps, because that's kind of who he is. I think he's been very careful to consistently talk about a couple of different things, which number one is We didn't give up any of the assets, right? This was
I mean,
all
that's true. That
we,
is
we
definitely true.
and ultimately, I don't care what his motivations were. If the result is the assets are intact, the draft picks, the prospects, the build out for the future is still there. It's still possible. We just are lucky enough to get to try to do this other thing too. That's I understand why he would try that, why he would message that. Again, is that the right thing? Was that the right thing to do with this coach? This particular season says absolutely not, obviously. So let me get to some comments here because I want Emma to chime in on that, but I want to get some of these comments here because I think there's some good stuff in here. Jesse says, if you're hiring from scratch, yes, you take history into context. However, once you are in the position, you base the decision off performance in that current position. I think that's a pretty nuanced way to look at it and probably relatively intelligent. Josh says, and the average season was lifted up by a huge outlier stretch, 18 consecutive games. Also important context to keep in mind. And I saw some folks in the lower broad chat saying this as well. Like, sure, it was an overachieving year with a lot of record-setting performances, but also they didn't win a playoff series and they got in as a wild card. It wasn't like the team was a great team. The difference was expectations going into the season. So it shapes how you frame success or failure based on expectations, which is why everyone's so down on this particular season. So where are you guys at on the 18-game win streak? And was it really a great season or was it just sort of a better than average season? Was it based on expectations? He maximized a lot of players, and I view that as one of the primary jobs of a coach. So,
Emma?
I still believe that the 18-game point streak is the worst thing that could have happened to this team. Because
it was fun though. I was there for a bunch of those games. It was a lot of fun. I gotta admit.
Sure, it was fun. A lot of things are fun and they're still bad for you. and I think that is how I feel about this because
that's what my cholesterol chart says.
It fooled a lot of people into thinking that this team was much closer to being contenders than they actually are. And then when they come now, do I think that they are as abysmal as this year's record shows? No,
of course
but
not.
I also don't think that they are, that close. There's like, oh, we were just a Steven Stamkos and a Brady Shea and a Jonathan Marchessault away. Like clearly they were not. So I think that team or that win streak or the point streak last year was one of the worst things that could happen to this team.
When you put it that way,
I don't entirely disagree. And I remember, looking at that 18-game point streak, and there wasn't anything fluky about their play. Like they were scoring a lot of goals. They were, UC Saros was excellent, and the underlying numbers were just as good. Like it wasn't a lucky stretch. Like for 6 weeks, they were world beaters, and that reflected well on Andrew Brunette. And I agree with Emma about this sort of false sense of security, for lack of a better term. Like it's easy to say in hindsight, I know. If the Predators would have missed the playoffs last season, would they have made the signings they did in free agency? I don't know.
It's a counterfactual we can't prove.
You're right. You're right. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I just.
So James has got a good jumping off point to our conversation here. James says, so if they overachieved last year and underachieved this year, does that mean they're stuck in the middle?
I mean, they are, this Predator, I think the Predators are where I think the Predators are, where they have been. They are. Go ahead.
Hang on. But Jesse says, but did they really maximize the players, or did the top line drive the bus last year and some career years from some other folks? So here's my question. And I think, because I agree with you, Adam, generally speaking, that they are what they are. If you combine the two seasons based strictly on record and points, they're about a 85-point team that's sitting outside the playoffs over a 2-year season. If you put them together, right? And
since the start of last season, the Predators have a 509 points percentage.
Yeah, slightly better than 500,
which puts them 25th in the league. The other teams that have 509 points percentages, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Montreal Canadiens.
Noted bottom dweller, Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yes. And congratulations to the Canadiens for making the playoffs.
But here's I think this is almost sometimes too nuanced and complicated because we're trying to find answers to questions that have very difficult answers. I really think this is how Barry Trotz looks at it, and you guys tell me if I'm being oversimplifying this, but it's sort of Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is probably the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Barry Trotz looks at one season and says, man, we got a lot out of that season. We were better than we expected. We were way worse than we expected in this season. I'm going to see what happens in the third season, and that's going to be the best 2 out of 3. Like, I know that's oversimplifying it, but I think that's probably, he's like, well, that was a good one. This is not a good one. Let's see what happens in the third one, and that'll decide what we're going to do. And that sounds so dumb when I say it out loud, but I think that's the simplest explanation of what they're looking at when Barry Trotz looks at the coach.
I just think that the Predators are where they have been for the past several years, which is, I think their ceiling is a wild card team that loses in the first round of the playoffs. Like, that's just what they are. They had their window. They did not win. It happens. And, I do think that this also leads to the question, which, I've had for many years, which is, would the Predator, again, another question that we won't be able to answer, right? But would the Predators have been better off really, taking a big step back? Like,
they did.
Well, yes, they did. But
that's what they did.
Yes, it was unintentional, however.
I mean, they debuted more rookies than anybody else in the league other than one team. They were third place. They're going to pick third in the draft.
Right,
they did the deep rebuild. They just didn't mean to.
I'm not sure, has Barry Trotz, Barry Trotz, we've lauded Barry Trotz for how aggressive he's been, right? The trades that he's, especially early on, like at the beginning, everything that Barry Trotz touched turned to gold, no pun intended, right? Like he signs Gus Nyquist in free agency, and he has the best season of his life.
I don't know. We ripped him for the Shen contract.
Yes, we did. He buys out Ryan Johansson, right? And I know that Matt Duchene is doing well in Dallas, but he needed to go, right? Like, I don't think, like, it's
there's a lot of fans that disagree with that now.
Yeah.
That Duchene has put together 4 really consistent seasons. 5.
I do want to. So James on our comment says, just well, as we all know, the Preds GM position has the job security of the Pope. One of my all-time favorite lines that I ever wrote about the Nashville Predators was that David Poile has the job security of a Supreme Court justice, and that's honestly, I'm wondering if Barry Trotz is going to be the same way.
Well, and even Burnett to be the guy who scored the first goal, Burnett's even an inside the family hire to some degree. Like, there's some element. Emma, I want your thoughts on the simplicity with which I am sort of trying to analyze Barry Trotz's view of this. Is that fair? Is that unfair? Do you think that's the way he looks at this in its most simplest form? It's just like, hey, solid, not solid, best 2 out of 3. Let's run it back.
That is, to a degree, I do think that is probably how he's looking at this, because of the way that Andrew Brunette joined the organization in the first place. Like, again, had John Hines under contract, still went out and got Andrew Brunette because he thought that was the guy. That was his guy, is going to be the right guy. And I don't think it's about like personal pride and just, I want to be right. But I do think that Barry Trotz, feels some sort of like he owes something to Andrew Brunette now. Like, I put you in this position. I want to see you succeed. It's like he's developing him the same way that organizations do with players, because Barry Trotz has talked about this before, that it's like, well, he's a younger coach. He's a newer coach. All true. I just think that, again, and it's all coulda, woulda, shoulda, but I think that Andrew Brunette would have been a better hire for this team had they decided to go the intentional step
Yeah.
back route.
Yeah.
But since they didn't, I think that is where the disconnect has been.
It just seems so odd. I don't even disagree with you, but it seems so odd to be like, yeah, if we don't sign Hall of Famers, we would have been better. Like that seems like an insane thing to say out loud. But I don't even necessarily disagree with you. So look, I got a question for you guys, and I want to sort of put a bow on the Brunette conversation as the first order of operations, because we got to talk about other stuff today. Some positive things that I want to get you guys to tell me, but I also want you to tell me, excuse me, what name. Give me 2 or 3 names. I know you've talked about Sullivan. Give me 2 or 3 names. I'll give you a chance to think about it, because I'm going to talk about Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue here. But I want you guys, because I'm putting you on the spot, I want 2 or 3 names of guys you definitively move Andrew Brunette for, right? Like, if the plan is to put something smart, here's the plan. We're going to be smart. We're going to put these names above a line. These are the names that are above the line. Everybody else, we're riding with Brunette. In your 2 expertise around the league with other names, I'm not qualified to give names, but I want you to. So think about that for a second while I tell everybody about our great 2 amazing local sponsors, Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Open 11 a.m. I'm verklempt. Open 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Wednesday through Sunday. You can get award-winning brisket at Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, and of course at our draft party for the NFL draft coming up next weekend. You can come by for just a few bucks. All the money goes to charity, the Our Kids Foundation. Every penny goes to help children of Middle Tennessee who need it. It is a great organization full of great, wonderful, amazing people. And both Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue make $0 on this entire event. My company makes $0. All the people involved make no money. Every penny goes to help the Our Kids Foundation. So please buy some tickets. We can give those away if somebody wants to donate those tickets, but go buy some tickets. Come on out, hang out next Thursday and Saturday. The event will be in Wedgwood, Houston at the Sinkers Beverages headquarters. The Track 1 building. It's a beautiful old renovated building right there off 4th Avenue. It's a fantastic place to hang out. All you can eat Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. All you can drink. We're going to watch the draft, do some live stream stuff on Thursday. Then on Saturday, we're going to have a private Q&A off the record with Paul Karski, Nick Suss, Steve Cavendish, JT Stoney, myself. There's going to be some other special guests potentially as well. So we're going to have some fun on Saturday where all of it is analog. No recordings, no podcasts, all off the record commentary, sort of ask us anything. It's going to be a lot of fun on Saturday night.
Were you Nico Harrison?
I don't know who that is.
Never mind. The GM
is he the quarterback for UCLA?
The GM of the Mavericks. If you didn't get it off the top, I'm not going to explain it.
I don't know NBA basketball. Okay. Did you have some time to think about it?
Yes.
I want to know, like, what is your list of names that you say definitively we should make a move because this guy is available and has said he's willing to have a conversation with us about coming to Nashville? Give me the names.
Rick Tocchet.
It's one name?
That's the first name that popped to mind.
Okay. Tell me why.
Reigning Jack Adams winner. He is a winner. He's been a part of Stanley Cup winning teams as an assistant. And I'm thinking of coaches who could be, dismissed. I think Tocchet, if I'm not mistaken, is in a contract negotiation. Josh on the comments mentions Mike Sullivan. I feel like maybe I'm wrong here. I feel like Mike Sullivan is going to be the coach of the Penguins until Sidney Crosby doesn't play anymore. I just have a hard time imagining them moving on from Sullivan while Crosby is still on the team. So Tocchet was the first one that came to mind. And I know that this is going to be a controversial take. I would consider Joel Quenneville. I would. I think of other coaches who are available. John Tortorella is available.
No, thank you.
John Tortorella is available. Gerard Gallant is available. Jay Woodcroft is available. But I would consider Quenneville. To me, usually, our friend Jared makes this point quite a bit when it comes to NFL coaches. With the Titans, you had Mike Vrabel, right? He's the hard ass, and then they fired Vrabel, and then they hired the nicer coach. They hired Brian Callahan, right? It's a cycle. You kind of go against type.
Players coach, disciplinarian, players coach. The pendulum swings back and forth. You correct. Right. It's very standard in all sports.
Right. like, if this is the team that the Predators are going to have, sort of to Emma's point about Brunette being a coaching prospect, right? I don't think this team needs a coaching prospect. Like, I don't think this team needs a Spencer Carberry type, who I believe was also in the running for the Predators job. Like, I think they need an established veteran coach. And somebody is going to take a chance on Joel Quenneville. Stan Bowman already has a job as GM of the Oilers. Somebody is going to take a chance on Joel Quenneville. I am not excusing what Joel Quenneville did in the Chicago Blackhawks Kyle Beach situation. He's been out of the game now for several years. I'm not going to cancel Joel Quenneville forever. Somebody is going to take a chance on Joel Quenneville. He is a good coach. And I do think that a veteran-laden team like this one needs a veteran coach. So would he be my first choice? No, but I would not dismiss it out of hand. I would consider it. And now
okay. All right. Emma needs some space in the studio to respond to that.
We know my thoughts on Joel Quenneville. I don't disagree that I think someone will take a chance on him. I would be very disappointed if it was Nashville. I think when, obviously we know, I think Mike Sullivan, I also don't disagree with that. I don't necessarily see him, if you ask Penguins fans, they want him gone like yesterday, but I don't see that happening. If we're not talking about, just what's most realistic here, I mean, Sullivan, yes, I would like to see him. May not happen. I would like to see Tocchet as well, but I've heard a lot of rumblings about him potentially, ending up in Philly as his next stop. So again, if we're talking about what's most realistic, I don't know, but I mean, yeah, those are two guys that I would like to see as well.
So Bill Belichick, John Wooden, and Rick Tocchet. I don't think realism is as important here for this conversation. I think this conversation is who's better than Andrew Brunette, and if you can get one of those guys, then you think about it, you do your diligence, and you maybe try. If you don't think you can get one of those guys, to your point, it's not realistic. Then keeping Andrew Brunette's the right thing to do. So again, we shall see what happens. I just wanted you guys to put a couple of names down. Those are the names we've been talking about, so I wanted to put a couple of those names down. All right, I'm going to ask for some positive stuff here, but first, let's listen to Matthew Wood. Emma, you had a chance to catch up with him at morning skate Wednesday before the game. He had a pretty silky smooth move down the boards on the left side there in I think it was the second period, where I was like, oh, that was confident and smooth and had pace to it. And I said, okay, starting to see a little confidence from the young guy, and that was nice to see. There's also other players that I want to ask you guys about that have earned a spot on this team next year. I want to know who is on that list, and then we'll talk some Cup playoffs here for a second to wrap up. But here was Emma in an exclusive interview with Preds rookie forward Matthew Wood.
I kind of want to hear about how your first week or couple weeks has gone. How are the nerves? How are you feeling?
It's been a great time and a great experience so far, and I think I was a little bit nervous, obviously, as anyone would be, and I think now I'm getting a little bit more comfortable as each day goes on. And it's been a lot of fun, and doing a lot of learning, and I think it's gonna, be really helpful for me leading into my summer to prepare for next season.
You think, when you think back, does it kind of feel like a whirlwind? Do you remember any of the conversations that you had, like when you first got here, whether it's like family, friends, teammates, like what did people tell you?
I just remember everyone telling me to have fun and enjoy the moment for my first game, and it was nice to have all my family here to experience that with me. And I don't remember too much of it, obviously, and there's certain moments here and there, but no, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm really grateful that I got to experience that.
You said you're still finishing up classes from Minnesota?
Yeah,
okay.
Still finishing those up, yeah.
So now, obviously last game here, there's no pressure on you coming into this, externally, but I think internally, do you feel sort of pressure to try and, come back and make the team next year now that you've had a taste of it?
Yeah, I think that was my whole goal with this little two-week stint here, and was just to learn as much as I can and improve a lot over the summer and come in and be ready to make this team. And I know I have a lot of work cut out for me to do that. And, it's a tall task, but I believe in myself, and I think this experience is going to be extremely helpful for me to reach my goal of making the team next year.
Any big plans for the summer?
No, I'm just excited to be home and spend time with my family and my friends. I mean, my biggest plans are probably to try to get better at golf, but and just enjoy time with my friends and family, and obviously a lot of work to do in terms of training, and but there's lots to enjoy, and I'm really excited.
Awesome. Thank you.
There you go. First and foremost, I've interviewed a lot of football players, and that's a fairly well-spoken 20-year-old kid right there. Just want to point that out. Not a kid, a young adult. I do think I saw some shades of development and growth, just flashes of stuff. Over 13 minutes in the awful performance against Utah, the seven goals. UC Saros just really happy with the defensive performance of that game. And then he got almost 13 minutes last night. He got an assist off of his chest, which is probably not what he wants for his first NHL point. But Emma, your takeaway from Matthew Wood for a few games. This is a first-round pick who's got a lot of expectations, and the team needs him to be a top 15 pick and a top 15 player. I don't think they need him to do that right now. But there was I think there were moments of confidence and growth. Not a lot, but moments of it over the course of a 5 or 6 game stretch that he played.
There were. I thought, overall it was kind of the most you could ask of him in the his first little stint there. This is not a guy that I would expect, nor should anyone expect, to immediately slot in and be an impact player for Nashville, like right off the jump. And I think that he came in, he didn't make a lot of the kind of gaffes that you would see from a rookie. He occasionally did. Sure, he's new, but I think overall you wouldn't have watched, if you didn't know anything about him or about the Preds, I don't think you could have watched any of those games and been like, that's the rookie. Like, that's the new guy. I think that he looked comfortable. He looked confident. He was making some plays. Like you said, I think that confidence is the biggest thing. And I think that he looked like he belonged there. And again, this isn't a guy that I expect to see, coming out of training camp with the team next year. And that's fine. That's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean, the Predators screwed up another pick. Like it's literally not that. I just think that he could benefit from some more development time in the AHL. But I think, he did all that was asked of him, and I think he performed admirably.
I have no extra thoughts.
Great. That's fantastic. Ryan Ufko also debuted a right-handed defenseman for the team.
I thought Emma did a great job explaining it. I have nothing to add.
She did.
Sometimes you don't have to talk.
Ryan, from you and me, that's hilarious to hear.
More so for you.
Settle down there, Mr. Radio host. So
you're one too.
Here's the deal. Ufko debuted as well. I think it was the 9th Predator player, 7th Predator. I don't remember. Seventh rookie to make his NHL debut. Nice story from Keezer, who talked to his college coach from UMass on Lower Broad Hockey. So make sure you check that out. I guess and I do think what's fascinating about the way Brunette and his coach talked about Ufko is that they're like, no. Mentally, he knows exactly where he's going to be. He knows exactly what he's supposed to do. Sort of the way Nick Blankenberg is kind of always in the right place. Blankenberg just has the wheels. And I think their commentary was, Ufko just needs to work on the skating a little bit, but otherwise he's sort of got the mind to be an NHL defenseman. So I thought that was interesting commentary from everybody. Here's my question though about the rookies, and you can go. I mean, I think Evangelista has a spot. I think Fedor Svechkov absolutely has a spot. I think even in the first period last night, the way he back-checked into his own zone, I thought was fantastic. Like, I think Fedor Svechkov is putting together a 200-foot game pretty quickly. and is going to be a very important piece for this team next year. And I think he's earned a full-time spot next season already. LaRue has some polish to go, but I think he's probably earned a spot as well. So outside of Svechkov and LaRue, and Evangelista, I think already kind of counts. Who also finished, I think, with a flurry at the end of the season. I want to say like 13 points in like 14 games, something like that, to end the season once he came back from the injury. Outside of those three, who I think we kind of all agree, I assume, have earned full-time spots going into next year's camp, are there other players on the list that you think, I'm not suggesting that they will break camp in the starting lineup, but that are close? Like, give me the names that you think you've seen from them this year enough to say, I think, and we'll spend more time in the summer and in camp next year, but I sort of want to set the benchmark now. Who are the names you are most excited about that you think have earned the right to fight for a starting spot next year?
Among rookies, I would say Adam Wilsby, and you kind of forget about him, right, because he missed a lot of time because of injury. But I was really impressed by what I saw from Adam Wilsby. So excluding the players you mentioned, Braden, he was the first one that came to mind, right? I think Svechkov earned a spot. LaRue has a role. Wilsby was the first one that came to mind. I think Mark Del Gaizo did an admirable job. But to me, Mark Del Gaizo, I don't know from
they may not re-sign him.
Right. But from like a stylistic standpoint, to me, like, not necessarily from a stylistic standpoint, like Mark Del Gaizo screams Matt Irwin. He's like, just that guy that you have on your third pair, like, seems like a nice kid.
Now I just have Mark Del Gaizo images in my head of him skating around screaming Matt Irwin's name.
Yeah, well,
it's like actually screaming the name, just like in the defensive zone, Matt Irwin.
He just screams Matt Irwin. I mean, and look, this is the question, right? Like, the overall quality of the Predators prospect pipeline, I would say, at least according to the people who know this stuff much better than I do, is solid. But it's still missing that crown jewel. And maybe that crown jewel is Michael Misa in 2.5 months, right? Or James Higgins or Matthew Schaefer.
It has to be.
Right. I mean, I'm looking at they had 8 rookies. They had 8 rookies appear in a game this season. Led by LaRue with 62 games, Svechkov with 52, Del Gaizo with 46, Wilsby with 23, Wood with 6, Weisblatt with 5, Kemmel with 2, and Ufko with 1. Right?
I think Ozzy Weisblatt needs to be in this conversation.
I mean, he's fine. I feel like that's what I would just say about a lot of these prospects. They're fine, and fine is good, but you also they need that. As I said, they need that crown jewel, and maybe it comes in the draft. But that's why this draft is critical. The Predators have an opportunity to do something they've rarely had the opportunity to do, which is pick at the top of the draft and get one of those players that we've clamored for them to get for many years. And I don't know which play. I don't know. I would assume that if it's Misa, for example, I imagine he'll be on the team. If it's Higgins, I don't know if he'll go back to college. I don't know how all of that works. But to me, to answer your question, I really liked what I saw from Adam Wilsby before he was injured. I think he could be a regular on the blue line for the Predators.
Emma, who you got?
I also like Wilsby. I really like Mark Del Gaizo. I, again, don't know what his future holds with the organization, but I do think that he does a lot of things really well. Like Adam said, he performed admirably. He's one of those guys that will do whatever is asked of him. I think now, is he your top pairing defenseman? No, but you need guys like him on your team. And I think that, he slotted over, played on the right side towards the end of the year. And I think that, he did well. And I think that he's got that offensive upside, not as a scorer, He's not a goal scorer, but I think that he can, he's really good at kicking off the rush from the blue line. I think that, whether Andrew Brunette is here or not next year, I do think that Delgado fits his kind of playing style very well. And then I don't know if we're putting, again, like he's not a rookie, but he was new to the organization this year. Nick Blankenberg, I think, like, again, I don't think that he should be on your top pair by any means, but I think that he has been one of the very few pleasant surprises in a season that has been full of surprises, but not of the pleasant variety.
He's
So
all every game he plays, he's all over the place, in a good way. In a good way.
Yeah. So
all right. I think what's fascinating about the defense group, because Adam Wilsby, Blankenberg, Stasny, I think Stasny has more talent than all the guys we just mentioned, but apparently he is going to sort of explain. I think he told this to the media that he's going to sort of explain his situation at some point. Do we have a time for Barry Trotz and clean out day? Is it tomorrow? Is it Friday?
I think players could be Friday.
And then Trotz on Saturday?
No, I would imagine it would be next
Monday?
week. I don't think they're going to do it on the weekend.
You never know.
They could bury it. They could bury it on the NFL draft day. They could if they want.
Next Thursday. There are a lot of the guys that I like and I'm interested in, and all the names you guys have mentioned, and I think they deserve a chance to earn their spot next year. But in a perfect world for a team that is rebuilding, that's great. It's great to have Wilsby, Blankenberg, Stasny, Ufko, and Delgado all battling for 1 or 2 spots. Would be even better if Justin Barron wasn't on the roster, but whatever. Anders England is a UFA, Delgado is a UFA, and Brana is a UFA. Those, I think, the only 3 that are sort of UFAs going into it. Evangelista is the big one they got to get signed from a restricted free agent standpoint. The problem is when this team starts the upswing, whenever that might be, if it's supposed to be next year or the year after, it's Andrew Gibson and Tyner Molendijk. Like those are the answers to the question of who's good enough to be high-level defense pairings with Yossi and Shea as the other 2, maybe Lozon. I don't know what his future holds after next season's contract expires. But the idea is you need to elevate the talent level in that group, even if they are nice players that we are rooting for and want to see them do well and think they've earned a chance. But that's the same thing we're talking about with forwards. It's like you need another tier. If you want to be a championship contender, you need another tier of player. And I do think they have those 2 guys in the system on defense. Are they going to be ready next year? I don't know. We'll see. We shall see. So I do think I just want to reiterate Svechkov, though, just because I know you guys didn't chime in much on him because I told you not to. But I think he is. I just think every game he plays, there's something more. I notice that it feels like he's adding to the game. And I don't know why they stuck in my mind. There were 2 or 3 like really great moments where he busted his ass to get back on defense in the first period after giving up a goal 16 seconds in. And again, I know the game doesn't matter, but watching a player like that, he's being used on the penalty kill. He's being used in defensive zone faceoffs. Like they're putting a lot of trust in him. And I think seeing him grow is something that I think, here's how we'll end, because we'll get to the Cup playoffs next week or whatever. Give me the most positive memory you have. Give me the thing you will remember. Like the thing I think I will remember the most of any positive and negative is just how frustrated UC Saros was all year. It's very out of character for him to show his emotions. And he was just very frustrated the whole season. I think that's the lasting memory in my head. But if I'm talking about positives, it is Fedor Svechkov. I think he is the thing that I'm going, all right, I think that guy's got a really good chance to be a very good player for this team if he continues on this path.
I will say this as I have to get ready to depart here. I will say that the most positive thing about this season is that the Predators unintentionally face planted into a top 5 draft pick. Like that's like as odd as that is to say, which I could have dressed it up a little bit more positively. But my point is as I said before, the Predators have not wanted to be in this position. They have not wanted to take the intentional step back to put themselves in a place where they can draft at the top of the draft. And this season was a disaster from the beginning. mean, they started 0-5. I mean, the season was effectively over at Thanksgiving, right? So we've had to slog through a meaningless season for the past several months. The positive from this season is that, kicking and screaming, they are going to have an opportunity to draft at the top of the draft. They may get the number 1 pick in the NHL draft, and that's a good thing. I mean, I think this organization needs an infusion of youth that is impactful, and like I agree, Braden. Like, Fedor Svechkov is a good story. We talked about last week, like, who could he become based on recent Predators players? Is he Colton Sissons plus? Is he Mikhail Granlund like? Granlund, by the way, riding on that top line for the Stars last night. Good for him.
If Misa's the best, this is Eddie. If Misa's the best center the Preds have had for the next decade, the season will have been a great thing.
That's my point. Like, this is not what they.
Not a terrible thing.
This is not what they intended to happen, but this is something that I've been wanting to happen for them for a long time. I mean, I reference
the problem is there's still like a 60% chance they pick 4th or 5th. Which is not Misa territory, honestly.
Right. But I do think that they are in position here. Like, they're guaranteed no worse than a top 5 pick. And I still think they'll come out with an impactful player who can hopefully lead the charge. So the positive thing about this season is that they ended in the place where I've wanted them to be for quite some time. And the opportunity to pick at the top of the draft.
All right. Emma, what's the...
I can't say anything
I
positive.
got you. I hear you.
I can't. There's nothing.
Come on, Emma. Spin it for us.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I would like to just temper everyone's expectations and say that there's not just a chance, there's actually a very good chance that Nashville picks 4th or 5th in the draft this year.
It's better than less. It's more likely than not.
Yes, correct. So again, we're not picking 1st overall. Very unlikely.
Yikes.
But
for those who don't,
11.5% chance.
For those who don't know, the Predators, according to our friends at Tankathon.com, which Barry Trotz, by the way, claims he's never looked at, I call BS. Tankathon.com. The Predators have an 11.5% chance of picking 1st, an 11.2% chance of picking 2nd, a 7.8% chance of picking 3rd, a 39.7% chance of picking 4th, and a 29.8% chance of picking 5th.
That's 70. First, I was thinking about that. 70% chance that you go down in the lottery is a bad system. I just want to point that out. If you're this bad of a team,
please continue, Emma.
But Barry Trotz, and I do want Emma to. This reminds me of when Barry Trotz talks about how he's never looked at Tankathon, and then he immediately makes a joke about him. I like self-deprecation, but maybe not when you're the general manager of a professional hockey organization. And because he's like, oh, I don't even know how to. Like, I need help with the emails, and I'm like, I don't need you to admit that publicly. I know it's not a big deal, and I know you don't need to be good at emails to be a great general manager, so I know that, but it's a bad message to send to your fans that you don't know how to use technology. I'm just saying. Sorry. Emma, go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, I agree. Svechkov's a good story. I think that a big part of why he became a good story is because they did make a decision with Tommy Novak and said, okay, this is not our guy. Svechkov is going to be our guy. And I think that he's risen to the occasion there. So I'll say Svechkov. I will also, again, to repeat what I said before, but Nick Blankenburg, very pleasant surprise. I will fondly remember watching him play.
It's fun to watch play.
First time that's ever been said.
Play.
He buzzes around all the time. He's like a little water bug out there, just buzzing around all the time. Always in the right spot.
I mean, hey, Emma and I are members of the Professional Hockey Writers Association. So the way that works with the Master 10 is every chapter nominates a player, and then all of those players are presented to the group at large to vote. And there are some years where there are obvious candidates, right? Like Gabriel Landeskog is the Avalanche candidate. Like, he's going to get a lot of love. Sean Monahan is the Blue Jackets candidate. He's going to get a lot of love for what that team endured and losing one of his best friends. The Predators did not have an obvious candidate this year. Like, there are times where it's like, clearly it should be this player. But, Blankenburg, considering that he's bounced around the league, he hasn't spent a lot of time in the NHL. the fact that he was able to establish himself on this team, that is a good story. I certainly, Emma and I both supported, Blankenberg as the choice. I don't think there really was any other choice, to be honest.
All right, quickly here. I know everybody's got to go. Sinkers Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Check out those two great local sponsors. Appreciate all you guys for watching, hanging out, thumbs up, notifications turned on, podcast reviews, all the stuff you do for us. We do appreciate it. I believe the only two series that have been scheduled are St. Louis and Winnipeg, Colorado and Dallas. I believe they begin on Saturday the 19th.
Correct. Yep.
The rest of them I think are still TBD. Which series are you most looking forward to? And then give me a Western Conference pick on the record.
Series I'm most looking forward to. I would have said Dallas, Colorado, but with the Jason Robertson news hanging over it, Miro Heiskanen's, how available will he be? Would it shock me if Colorado did to Dallas what Colorado did to Winnipeg in the first round last year? No, it wouldn't shock me. So that's lost some bite. Toronto, Ottawa is going to be awesome. Battle of Ontario, Ottawa in the playoffs for the first time since 2017, when they could have played the Predators in the Stanley Cup final. Brady Tkachuk in the Stanley Cup playoffs for the first time. You saw how amped up he was during the Four Nations face-off. It's going to be even more so at his first taste of playoff hockey. I'm trying to think of what other series. I mean, those
look, no love lost Edmonton and the Kings.
Right, fourth year in a row that those teams are playing in the first round.
That is how you build. That's how you build history. Is just constantly seeing each other in the playoffs.
By the way, the Kings are winning that series. I'm convinced.
Ooh, okay.
The Kings are winning that series.
Yeah, they're going to punch him in the mouth, I think.
So, are you asking for like a team that comes out of the West?
Just since we didn't have a lot of time, I just wanted some quick thoughts on the playoff bracket. Now that we've got the team set,
series. So the series that I guarantee you I will not watch a single second of is Carolina and New Jersey. I could give a flying fuck about that series. I think it's like there's one series every year. I just don't have time to like. I could not care less.
I will watch it because it's Eastern time zone.
Yes, that is true. It's just there's no juice to that series, right? Carolina trades Rantanen. Jack Hughes is not playing for New Jersey. It's just
Florida. Tampa, of course, has the rivalry there. That'll be juicy. So
Tampa Bay, by the way, being overlooked as a Stanley Cup contender, which is strange to say.
Which is bad for the Predators' draft needs. they need Tampa Bay and they need Vegas to lose instantly.
So Western Conference pick. Which team do I think is going to come out of the West?
I mean, Colorado is your odds-on favorite at plus 700 to win the whole thing, frankly. Carolina is the odds-on favorite in the East, which is interesting considering neither one of them won the division.
So. The thing is, I look at Winnipeg, and the Jets had a fantastic season, and Connor Hellebuck should win the MVP. But I've seen Hellebuck turn into a pumpkin a couple of times in the postseason.
Well, isn't St. Louis like, what's their win-loss record over the last month?
I mean, they recently won 12 games in a row.
Right.
I don't think they'll lose to the Blues, but like if Winnipeg played Colorado, I think if Winnipeg played Colorado in the second round, that could be a bit dicey.
I know they lost, so they lost 3 after that stretch, but how about this? St. Louis in their last 27 games, which is early February, 24-3. 20 wins, 4 losses, 3 in overtime. That's as hot as you can possibly be going into the playoffs.
I mean, maybe this is a hot take. I mean, Colorado is I think I agree that Colorado is probably the best team. I'm not sleeping on Los Angeles. I really like the Kings. I really do. They are the best team. They are the best team. They are the best defensive team in the league. They are an elite defensive team. Darcy Kemper has been outstanding for them in net. And I feel like they have the offense. Like the one question I always have about the Kings is, do they have the offense to hang if their defense and goaltending falter? I think they do this year. We'll see what Quentin Byfield took a cross check to the head from Darnell Nurse the other night. So we'll see what his availability is.
I saw that. That was nasty.
And by the way, Nurse getting one game for that is crappy.
All right, I want to hear from Emma. Shut up, Adam.
But
Emma,
don't sleep on Los Angeles.
Yeah, it took a lot of my thoughts there, so I will keep it brief. I think I was like the easy answer as far as the series I was most excited for was Dallas, Colorado. Obviously, due to recent events, I'm not as excited about that one anymore, but I do think I would not sleep on the St. Louis Blues and Winnipeg. Now, do I think St. Louis is going to come out of the West? Not necessarily, but I do think that this is going to be a really, really competitive series because, first of all, Shen versus Shen. That'll be interesting. But I also think that just in general, I mean, yes, Winnipeg has a history in the playoffs of not showing up. But I think that it is, St. Louis has been the hottest team in the NHL since the Four Nations break. And that is the team that, everyone in the West was looking at as like, a bubble team, which now they're not a bubble team, but like
don't want to play them in the first round.
Right.
Yep.
So I think that that series is going to be better than people are expecting it to be.
Okay. All right. There you go. Anything else? You guys? Great stuff as
I
usual.
hear my son coming up the stairs. So
let's get him on the camera. Let's get old Arlo on the camera. Let's see what is his thoughts on Spencer Stastny?
I don't think he has any thoughts on that. He'll talk to you about.
Does he still have the flow? Does he still have the flow going, or did you cut the flow?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, he's got the flow. It's been trimmed a little bit, but it's still long.
All right. Buy some tickets to the draft party for charity. It's all for kids next week. Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, Sinkers, Beverages. Make sure you support Emma Lingan and Adam Vingan in all the things that they do all across the internet and in the media world. So we do appreciate that. Thank you for your support on Lower Broad Hockey. We are not going anywhere, folks. We are back every week. Just because it's the offseason doesn't mean any of the coverage stops, because now we enter the most critical. You could argue this is the most critical 2 months of decisions, 3 months of decisions this organization has made in a very, very long time. So we got a lot of coverage for you coming this offseason, so don't go anywhere. All right, for Adam, for Emma, I am Braden. Thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging out. We'll talk to you guys next week.